Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
It's spinning! It's spinning! Jonathan Sexton has made it!
Do you feel moderately happy?
No, I feel like I've been kissing my sister, I suppose.
In the pocket for his drop goal attempt. Here he goes, O'Gara. He's done it! That surely is the Grand Slam.
We target players all the time. That's part of rugby, isn't it? Let me know.
Sexton, wonderful pass and Stockdale finishes.
There'll be more than grenades. There'll be full tanks and full shells landing on the Aviva.
Grand Slam winners on St. Patrick's Day at Twickenham.
Now you're welcome along. So let's look at Six Nations round 4. Wales alone remain the only unbeaten side in the championship. 7 tries in Rome. Italy pretty terrible, to be honest. The Welsh head to Paris Saturday night with Grand Slam ambitions. The French were undone, of course, at Twickenham. Maro Itoje conjured up the match-winning try. And, of course, Ireland 27, Scotland 24 at Murrayfield, from 14 points up to 24 points apiece and in big trouble. And then Johnny Sexton did his thing. The news this afternoon is that James Ryan and Gary Ringrose are both out of the England game. Peter O'Mahony once again available for selection. And we should mention, away from the international spotlight, Joey Carbery's return continues to gather pace. Very good performance by all accounts in his first start for Munster since his return. They beat the Scarlets 28 points to 10. Now to discuss all of that, former Irish internationals Keith Wood and Niamh Briggs. Hello, Niamh.
Hi, how are you?
Mr. Wood, hello.
Hello, Joseph. How are you?
Very well. So I suspect for the coach and probably the watching public as well, the win was more relief, the way it all transpired, as opposed to absolute ecstasy, but not for the first time. Johnny Sexton.
No, I think so. I think Johnny thought he played pretty well for the game. He was in control of the game, actually. I still feel we kicked far too much ball away, and I still feel it's hard looking at the game in terms of performance, especially having watched the truly spectacular game that we had on the previous day. And I'm definitely not talking about Wales-Italy. So look, we got the win, but we should have won that game by 40 or 20 points. I thought we had so much control of so much of the game, possession, territory, everything. And we just, we won. So it's hard to criticise, but it wasn't the most enjoyable game of rugby to watch.
Niamh, Keith maybe captures what I'm sensing is the prevailing mood, which is we won, quickly followed by a but.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought there was lots of intent in how they went about, especially in the first half. I thought as the game wore on, the momentum kind of shifted, and then we kind of went into not really panic mode, but a little bit of panic mode. And I thought 50, 60 minutes I was screaming at television to bring Conor Murray on. I thought he would have brought a little bit more of composure around, but I did think that they played well in patches. They tried things, looked to move point of contact, and so I was really excited about that. I think it's a funny game, when momentum shifts and teams are on the up, it's really hard to try and grab that momentum back. And I thought Ireland did really well to grab it back for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah. You can't forget in that first half, they are looking, Niamh, to do a few different things. And you talked there about move the point of contact and try a few little extra bits and bobs. Like we are seeing that. It's maybe not resulting in an amazing try or some big massive gain that we all remember afterwards, so it's probably not registering as much. I mean, you're kind of hoping that's coming, but on the evidence of the first 4 games of this championship, not there yet.
No, it's not, but I felt at half time in that match that Ireland were just a small margin away from clicking, and if they could click, then they could have really opened up the Scotland team. I thought that's how close I felt that they were. I think we regressed back a little bit, as it's a bit like soccer, when especially when Jose's teams get a 1-0 lead, they sit back and invite teams on. I thought we did that a little bit, especially once Scotland scored their first try in the second half. We invited them onto us as opposed to going after the game again. We were happy enough to box kick. Like James Gibson Park kicked the ball 15 times. And we spoke before the game about if that was going to be the tactic, then, it was really hard to see why he would start over Murray in that sense, because Murray's box kicking is probably one of the most effective, accurate box kicks in the world. So I think that from that point of view is very frustrating. And then also, you know, we go 27-24 up, 2.5-3 minutes left, and we kicked the ball back to them 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, a team, you don't have confidence in yourself, I feel, or we were too panicky to hold on to the ball for 60, 70, 80 seconds. Keith's time playing with Munster, they were able to hold on to the ball for 10 or 12 minutes if they got a lead towards the end of the game. They were brilliant at tucking it up the jumper, but we were happy enough to that was probably a little bit more of what we were seeing, in terms of we took a brilliant lead, lost momentum, and then we just didn't have the confidence really to go after it.
Yeah. On the kicking, Keith, you suspect the reason they kept doing it is because they got a lot of joy out of it. You know, I mean, I don't, by the way, Niamh's point on the final few moments when they were 3 points up and kept kicking away possession, that was bizarre. I agree on that. But for a lot of the game, when they kicked the ball, they were getting huge joy. I mean, Keith Earls had some big moments, Robbie Henshaw, they were, you know, making 10, 20 metres quite often. So I guess the old adage in rugby, if something's working for you, just keep doing it.
Yeah, I even felt at one stage when the cross kick went for the try, I said, we're going to kick the ball constantly now, because if it works, you know. Yeah. And look, we've had this conversation ad nauseum. It isn't about saying that that's the wrong thing to do or a bad thing to do. It just has to be part of a wider plan. And for me, when we're under pressure, we rely on that again and again and again and again. And it got us to a point where we won a game, so that's fantastic. We should have been home and hosed at that stage. And you could pick that up in the frustration from Johnny Sexton when he talked about it afterwards. He said, 14 points up and we're still having to eke out, an incredible kick from the touchline for us to win. So, look, we started on the negative, which I'm kind of annoyed with for that too, because we did so much right. Our turnovers were incredible. Some of the movement, there's been a few memes and a few funny things about Tyke Furlong with his dancing feet, Nijinsky on a bad day almost, but he was great. Our line-out was magnificent. It absolutely destroyed the Scottish line-out. So, we are doing an awful lot well, and the pack did a lot well. I just, we're lacking that buzz. So when I say Johnny managed the game, he absolutely managed the game. We just need to do more. Whether that is attack the gain line far more, or incorporate players from the wing or fullback more, of different receivers, and we did have different receivers at different times in that. But I thought we were in control and weren't getting the scores in the first half. And when it got to the second half, I don't know. I don't know. So when we say, kicks great, can you think of an international winger that decides that he's playing rugby and all he's doing is chasing a ball that's kicked in the air all day? I think it has to be more than that. So the criticism that I would have on this Irish team, I would have had on the English team, that an awful lot of it was blunt and too much kicking. So it can change, because England changed and some of their passing was just out of the top drawer, and it was different, and their kicking was kicking to try and win it back. And they did kick, England did kick as well, and they got a good bit of it back, but they just didn't kick as much as we were kicking. And it was a different type. So but they seemed to say, okay, we need to have a big change in how we're playing, because it was like a different sport to the manner in which they've played earlier on in the season. So it's what do we do then in 5 days' time? What do we continue just to keep kicking? That's not progress. If people say it's progress, it's not.
No, it's true. And to be fair, you take the 2 tries, so the kick for Earls and then the pick and go inside the 22 for the Tykeburn try. You don't really feel like that's the blueprint to get over the line against a better side. England, for instance, this Saturday. You don't really look at the Irish attack and say, right, it's now stepped forward a couple of notches and is ready to take on England. That, I suppose, is the worry. And Shane Jennings was alongside me in Virgin Studio watching the match, and he picked out numerous occasions where he said hit pause now, and there's massive overlaps outside, or there's numbers out wide, and we're electing not to take those overlaps. We played a few of the clips after the game, and it was, similar story after the French game, that stolen line out in midfield and box kick from the halfway line, effectively from Billy Burns, straight from the off, and a big overlap outside. So that area of the game is not improving. They're still, for whatever reason, be it they're adjusting to this heads-up business, or the plan is very rigidly to kick. Not sure which one it is, maybe a mixture of the two. But whatever the reason, they're still not improving in that regard. They're not taking those overlaps out wide.
No, absolutely. And I think what frustrated me a small bit the other day is every time we turn the ball over and we get it back into our possession, there's almost like this frantic quick get rid of it or kick it as quickly as possible, as opposed to let's just set it up, have a look up, see where the space is. And more often than not, if you get a turnover ball, the defence that's turned it over will start to crab in, because they just think, oh my God, let's just, they gravitate towards the ball, and the space is outside. But we can't seem to, we either try and force things that, another knock on, or we lose the ball, or we kick it away. And I can't understand how, for a team that can win so many turnovers, James Ryan, CJ Stander, Tyke Byrne, Robbie Henshaw, they're really good players on the ground, and we get a lot of turnovers, especially off line out as well. The other days was brilliant. Do they not work at it in training? Do they not turn around and say, okay, let's play a couple of phases, blow every time a whistle's blown, it's turnover ball, and let's play what's in front? It seems to me like they don't, because that's the one area since they've started this tournament, even back to Autumn Nations Cup time, that we haven't improved at all. We just do not look like we have any plan. We don't look like, and Keith will tell you, the old kind of saying that when you got a turnover with club rugby was just move it two pass rule, get it away from the contact. We don't even seem to have any sort of pattern or or understanding about where the ball can play. It's literally just get it, and whoever has it kicks it. Like for Finn Russell's try, the minute we turned the ball over, Gary Ringrose tried to kick it, when realistically the space wasn't there to kick it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that for me is probably a big frustration point. But I thought the other day, especially in the first half, when they attacked the ball off phase play, they tried loads of little movement to point of contact, little tip-ons from the forwards, little passes out the back, switch plays that they tried didn't come off all the time, but at least they tried them. And so I definitely saw positive movements in that area. But we're brilliant at turning ball over, and yet we don't seem to punish teams like other teams will punish us.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Keith, I wonder, where does skill set come into this? Are we overestimating in certain quarters the capabilities of the team? You see when Sexton gets his hands on the ball, there's a bit of quality. You see when Tyke Furlong gets his hands on the ball, there's just a noticeable upping of the quality or the pace on things. Or, Tyke Byrne, in fairness to him, has come in and shows great hands. And then, look, there are chinks in that chain. Think of dancing Furlong, as you mentioned, and then it goes to Stander and he tries this loopy pass out wide that hits the ground. And, there's probably limitations there as well, we have to be frank about.
Well, look, if there are limitations, you have to, the self-awareness is understanding them. That's part of it, and working on it in training. So I don't think there's anything wrong in having different players in the forwards who are pivot players, who interest the opposition, or still able to pass out the back or offload or whatever it is. And there's some who aren't. So the ones who aren't, you make certain that they tuck their head down and go into contact, or maybe not have themselves in that position.
But isn't that a limiting point then, though? So say Stander there, where there was something on, and he's 50 caps into his Ireland career, and it's just accepted that he's not a good passer. I mean, you'd be working on that every day, surely.
Well, I think you would, but also I'd be saying you pass it to the guy next to you, and suddenly the a missed 3 pass doesn't dribble on the ground, and you've people in a line. For me, I thought the pass wasn't great, but I also thought there was nobody putting their hands up for it. So there was about 3 guys in a line or a bit of a loop. It wasn't as it wasn't as simple as cut out as that. So sometimes it can just be put the ball to the guy next to you. Do the skills that you have. So when you're under pressure, do the skills that work. And you work all the time then in training to change that level, to make it a higher level. That's what training is for, is so that when the pressure comes on, you're actually able to do certain bits of skills. So I do see there's elements of that, and I do see that some of our players are able to do it. And I actually, it's funny, when you look at the game with George Ford playing on the previous day, and I'm a big fan of George Ford as an out half, because he's small and his passing is just flat, and he's attacking the line, and yet he's still pulling it. There's some of the passes for the English scores were 15-20 metre passes. It's a joy, and so there's criticism there. There also is Robbie Henshaw, who was on fire. I think Hugo Keenan is doing really, really well at full back. I don't know him. I've never met him, but he's one of the guys that since he's come onto the scene, he seems comfortable. It doesn't mean he's perfect. He's an awful lot to work on, but there's a sense of comfort having him back there. He seems to be in the right place at the right time, nearly all the time.
And to go back to your standard point, I accept what you're saying about Keenan and Henshaw. There's lots of positives there as well. So that's a fair point you make on standard. Not everyone's going to have, going to be DuPont in disguise. But so it's interesting you're saying, one, his decision making there was questionable and the shape around him wasn't so good. Because, for me, to hone in on a moment and try and extrapolate something bigger, if you're thinking of what France would have done at Twickenham. So say their tight head prop could dance like Furlong and create that bit of, there's something on here, let's go. That we don't take advantage of that situation, be it Standard's decision, be it the execution of the pass, be it the shape around him. That for me, if you were my cat, you'd spend 10, 20 minutes on that in the meeting room and be talking about what needs to happen there and what's not happening there. Because I just know when you watch France and something like that happens, they're all alive to it somehow. You use the word buzz. That was a perfect moment where there should have been real buzz about Ireland there, and ball hits the ground and on we go,
Well, I think that's valid, and I also think that I think Rog said it on over the weekend that that the confidence to try things, it was all very prescriptive before, and the confidence to make that change takes a period of time. So at some stage you have to say, lads, we're going to have a cut. Maybe it isn't in a Six Nations game, maybe it is, but we're going to have a cut, we're going to chance different things, but we want everybody running with a positive line. So on that line, CJ drifted across the field a little, so did the rest of the guys outside him. That's one of those guaranteed balls that's always going to hit the ground. There was nobody picking a line off it and having a cut. And that's something we need to do. I mean, we need to be running onto the ball. It's the confidence of going at full tilt, catching a ball. It doesn't matter what your defensive line does. That straightens them up too. That stops them drifting. It gets you over the gain line. So, look, they're all little bits and bobs. For me, Furlong, having been out injured for so long, fighting his way back into match fitness, it was just great to see him play.
No, it's brilliant. He's the real deal, isn't he? He can do everything. Niamh, the other big positive you would have to take from yesterday, and it was evident in the first match in Wales, it was evident against France, and again yesterday, there is a team spirit about this group. I'm not saying previous groups haven't had it, but there is, they are really in this together. There's a commitment about things. You get the sense, whatever about confidence, put that to one side for a second, but psychologically as a group, they're in a very committed, good place together. You sense a lot of unity in that group at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Johnny spoke about it in his interview afterwards that, or maybe it was Andy Farrell, I'm not sure, but, when you go 14 points up and with 5 or 6 minutes to go, the opposition level it, it's a really difficult conversation to have underneath the posts. But, the ability to turn around and say, right, we're going left, someone's got to smash and someone's got to try and get in over it. We can do this. You could see it, it was a brilliant effort by Ryan Baird to get up, and a brilliant steal by Henderson to have that knowledge or discipline. Not like most players would have just saw kind of red in terms of ball on the player on the ground, let's just jump in and get it. No, and jump in on top of them, and then it's a penalty against you. But to have the understanding to just hold his feet a small bit, get in over the ball, and sure, when he's brilliant at that, so there was going to be no moving him. So I think from that perspective, they literally went and won the game twice. and that'll be a huge, big confidence. That's 2 wins on the bounce now for them. And, you know, after the first couple of weeks where they'll, you know, kept talking about in the media saying, oh, look, we're all together, you know, we've been unlucky. That can only kind of go on for so long, and you could really feel that they went out together yesterday, especially in those last few minutes, and made things work. Even though we were all screaming at the television for the box kicks for the last 2 minutes, they all seemed to be very much on the same page, that it was okay to do it. They were buying into it. They were all chasing it. They were putting Scotland under pressure. I thought for the last 60 seconds, they were really disciplined. Nobody jumped into a ruck. They just tackled, got up off the ground, filled the field, made it really difficult for Scotland to have a broken field type of scenario that they would have wanted. So from that perspective, 100%, they'll take great confidence from that, knowing that some of the things that happened the weekend, they can be easily fixed for 5 days' time.
Yeah, Keith, you've been in lots of team environments, obviously. I suspect on the outside, when a performance has deficiencies, like a lot of performances will, but on the inside, you've come through a really kind of tough roller coaster like that and ground it out and got the win in the end. We can probably underestimate on the outside what that does for a group inside. Like, there's a degree of probably looking around each other saying, okay, this is something we can really build on now, and maybe you can kick on. That's the hope.
I think that's entirely true, and we're giving a view from the outside, and we're looking at it as fans now that we are, but the team will say, oh my God, we got a really good win against Italy, who were rubbish. We've eked out a win here when we could have lost it away from home. Things haven't been great, but my God, it's a damn sight better. Lost 2-1-2. It could have been maybe lost 3-1-1, and that would make it very ugly. And they go in for a chance to a game that they don't ever have any issue getting up for. And I know that sounds like an odd view, but you know, when you're playing a team like England, who are you know, very confident, very capable, your game is raised. It's a huge game, but much and all, as people say, it's not any bigger than the other games. You know that there is a big sense of that there is. So they have to raise the game, and they will raise it emotionally to make certain that they're at a higher pitch. For me, I think it's hard to really sustain a game when you kick away the ball so much, even if you win it back. It's just there's a 50-50 chance you're not going to get it back all the time, and you've guys running up and down the field for half the day. So I don't know, I was stunned by the change in England. I thought they made good changes on the field, but I thought Ben Young's played the best game I've seen him play in about 5 or 6 years for England. I know, but so we have to get our head around that fact. Are we going to be able to close them down far more than France? And yes, we are. And where's our confidence going to be at? Are we going to do something more with the ball? Because I don't know if we can get away with it against England.
No, and look, that is the worry. I mean, the attack is still not humming, for all that we're kind of accentuating a positive or two. So let's talk defence then, Niamh, because look, if my cat's been under scrutiny over the last while, I think Guy Easterby increasingly probably will be scratching his head at Simon, excuse me. I thought it was, is it not Guy?
Guys with Leinster.
Sorry. Guy, I apologise profusely. Simon, we're coming for you. But Simon Easterby might be kind of having a few questions to answer in some ways. We'll come to the 2 tries. I mean, there's mistakes in them, but just in general terms, if you picture, because Alan Quinlan talked about this with Jaron Owen on OTB AM this morning, if you remember when Robbie Henshaw, who, as you rightly said, Keith, is in brilliant form, sprinted back diagonally the length of the pitch to push, I think it was Van der Merwe out over the sideline, and there was kind of chest to chest and all that stuff as well. Alan Quinn was making the point that really Scotland there went from their own 22 that far up the pitch without really beating a man. That actually Ireland are incredibly soft in defence, especially in that last quarter, often backsides facing the touchline, as opposed to so many defences which are up and putting an opposition under pressure. He feels the Irish defence generally, and we will come to the tries, but generally is almost more important, are just way too soft at the moment, way too pleasant to play against.
Yeah, I thought there were definitely moments for that Scottish match that it was hips to touchline and we were conceding space and almost trying to get Scotland to to the side of the pitch or the edge so that we could use the touchline to help us out, I thought.
And giving up too many yards and metres doing that?
Yeah, I thought at times they were right to do it, and then other times they could have put pressure on. And I think a little bit of that had to do with fear, because Scotland are so good at taking to the line and pushing the pass out the back, taking to the line and pushing pass out the back, and then before you know it, they're in the 15 to the touchline, and you might only have 2 defenders against 3 players, because there are quite, Finn Russell's very good at controlling that. Stuart Hogg's excellent at coming onto that. So I'd say there might have been a little bit of fear. I think the first time that Scotland got a good attack, they went down James Lowe's wing and got a bit of change out of it. And if I'm correct, I was trying to watch as much as I could afterwards, but Hugo Keenan seemed to be covering James Lowe a lot. So he was in and around that side of the pitch, which meant that Keith Earls then couldn't go hard, because he was trying to keep, if he went hard and they got it over him, then, it was almost going to be a guaranteed try, because Keenan's the space that he had to make up was too much, or to the fact that, Gibson Park might have been in the line. I need to go back and watch it, but on my initial viewing, that's exactly what I thought. I thought Keenan seemed to be taking the last man on James Lowe wing quite a lot, or hanging in and around that 13 channel behind us, and then it left the other side exposed quite a bit. And at that stage then, when things happen and forwards get sucked in, you can't then push off the line, because 2 passes and they're on the outside and you're conceding a lot more space. But I thought, though, in the first couple of matches, Ireland actually got off the line very well. Thought they were very square. So I think it might have just been a fear factor, maybe, because Scotland are so dangerous at that type of game.
I thought it was conscious, Joe. I thought it was a conscious change from... we tend to blitz quite a lot, and in the past, when we play against teams that play a very fast or complicated system, we become very narrow, and we weren't narrow. So you lose ground, but you still make the tackle, and I think that works for a lot. I don't like the hips being turned as much, and I don't like it to be that passive, and I felt we got too passive. But on that drift, you just have to make the tackle, and that's the issue. That was the issue for that. It wasn't that hard up on that side. I think there was a bit of a scramble to it, but the tackle has to be made.
You're talking about the Hugh Jones try here. Yeah. So I mean, like, what do you say here with James Lowe? Because there's now a few blips, and nobody's suggesting, geez, you write him off at test level, but clearly the jump or the demands at Pro 14 or European level are very different to test level. I mean, let's go short term. With a view to England, can you start him with any confidence if you're Andy Farrell now?
I don't think so. And again, let's not write him off, because he's too good a runner and too good a player, and has proven that over the last few years with Leinster. Yeah. This is a significant step up, and you're trying to not learn your trade, but you get exposed at this level. If there's a glitch, let's everybody attack the glitch. There's no humanitarianism here. Like, if he has got a weakness, you gut him as soon as you possibly can, and you know he'll be targeted. And so that has to be about getting that understanding to a higher level. I think he'd be exposed on it this weekend. So for me, no, I wouldn't. But I would be saying he's got too much quality for us to get rid of. So we need to maximise the amount of time he has in this system, understanding what is expected at him at this level. And Brian O'Driscoll was on a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about his technique was very grabbing. Well, it can't be. He has to tackle properly. Even for that particular try on yesterday, his body position was too high. He wasn't in the position to make a tackle. He just wasn't in the right place to do it. So, and I also think it's, look, us having this conversation, so we're asked our opinion. This is hard stuff. You know, his appraisal is in public. This is tough. And even though he's not a young guy, he's a young international. So there's an awful lot of learning still there for him. And I don't know that I'd want that exposed against England.
Yeah, and it is tough for him, and I think you knew when he threw the ball out over the touchline a few moments later that, you know, he was probably in a tough spot, and you hope he recovers from it. The first try, Niamh, So once Ringrose kicks the ball, and I think the consensus is it wasn't the right thing to do at that moment, then it's just kind of comedy of error stuff. I'm not sure, like, what analysis can you make from that point on?
Yeah, look, I think if you're probably trying to find one work on from it, I think it was the lack of reaction or energy to try and claim the ball back. I think we speak about energy on the ball, but you have to match that energy on the ball to have an energy off it. And I think that we didn't do that. We were quite passive. We didn't look to clean up any, the mistake. We didn't. We looked just very passive, and unfortunately, James always coming into that, and there was, we just seemed to. We spoke about it before, in terms of the attack, about us being reactive as opposed to or proactive. I think when you're in that position, in that danger zone, you've got to be thinking possible scenarios here. And the box kick get blocked down, but it's the next phase after that you have to be very wary of. And Ireland just weren't able to counteract that. They weren't able to get speed of thought. They weren't able to have that burst of energy. And it's exactly similar to the point that Keith made earlier on in terms of when Tadhg Furlong's dancing feet put CJ into space. We hadn't the energy to get onto the ball, and we didn't have the energy to get the ball back for that try. And I think that's a pretty worrying thing.
Our rugby coverage on Off the Ball is with thanks to Vodafone, team of us, everyone in. So England come to Dublin on Saturday. They were 23-20 points winners against France. As predicted at the outset of the tournament, Keith, England coming good just in time for Dublin, and that was a big step forward at the weekend. The first 40 minutes of this game, I think, are the best 40 minutes in the Six Nations in I don't know how long, but a very, very long time, years and years. It was just exceptional.
Well, in terms of pure quality, as even opposed to excitement, the first 40 minutes is the best that I can remember. And it reminded me, it's the best England have played since the World Cup semi-final against the All Blacks. But it wasn't just England. It was both sides playing at full tilt. Some of the passing, the players having to sprint at full tilt to catch a wide pass. It's fantastic. The speed, the ball not going into touch, the lack of penalties, the level of discipline in that first half. You would think that would blow out any team, and yet it was 50-50 all the way in that first half. It was a joy to watch, and I have to say, I think in lockdown, with the lack of crowds, with some of the pressure that's on coaches and players and teams, we haven't seen. It's been great to have rugby, but some of it hasn't been great. This was magnificent. I mean, this was a joy to behold, and even the second half was a joy to behold for different reasons. For the fact that there were mistakes in this, but there were mistakes on two sides, not just one side, and they were still going for at full tilt. There was. Look, it was. It's why it's a great game, is when the game is played like that. It doesn't always have to be played like that, but by God, you love it when you see it.
Oh yeah, all too rare to see that kind of level. It was incredible, and I'm not sure if France Niamh walk away, with their confidence and their progression massively dented. I mean, they come out of it with lots of credit as well. There was a period where they were 4 points clear, and clock was ticking along, and they were defending resolutely. They were doing very well at the breakdown. It was cutting to Sean Edwards in the crowd, and he was banging the table, because you really felt, God, this is another kind of big scalp for France. And then Itoje steps up and snatches the game. So both teams sort of walk away with a lot of credit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think France, for me, are just such a changed side from the France we've kind of been used to, because usually when they go into a game like that, and England playing so well, they don't really stay the course. And big turning point though was the Jalabert miss for touch. I think that kind of gave England a bit of momentum back, and every team, that's what they're craving. They're craving that momentum, that front football. And but yeah, as Keith said, it was, you just almost wish that every rugby game that you sit down to watch is exactly like that, because there were so many good moments in it. And worrying for Ireland that England seem to have hit a run of form and will take huge amount of confidence from it.
Yeah, how worrying? Are we now saying England are pretty firm favourites all of a sudden coming over?
I think I think at the start of this tournament, I think France and England were always going to be. I always felt that they were a little bit ahead of Ireland in their development, and I wasn't fully, aware of what was going on behind the scenes in England, and was a bit shocked about how they started the tournament. So they've really played themselves into form. I thought, 5 weeks is a long time, obviously, in rugby, and I thought Billy Vanapola showed a huge amount of pace and energy the weekend, which I hadn't seen from him in all this tournament. And you could see how other players gravitated towards that. And Johnny May was back to his brilliant running best. And, if they get scenarios like the Tyke Furlong one, that we got the other day, they just give it to their quickest player and get the ball as far down the pitch as possible. Whereas that's the difference between England and Ireland in terms of that transition ball. So I think England will be full of confidence, and you'd like to think that home advantage might be something, but I think Ireland have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Keith, you always felt those Saracens players, their fitness had come good. Elliot Daly dropped was probably enough of a kick up the ass to everybody as well. They got Ford back in. You mentioned Young's playing very well. I mean, suddenly it's a hell of a lot more ominous a task for Ireland on Saturday. How do you see it from this vantage point?
Yeah, I think it is more ominous because they've realised they can play, which I think what they've realised, and I think Eddie Jones has to take a lot of criticism for this, not just the idea that he was trying to make certain that he'd get all the players fit by the end of the tournament. Well, you have to win the matches. Could you imagine him doing that in a World Cup? It wouldn't happen. So I think they've played some pretty bog average rugby until Saturday, when they were magnificent. So they know they can turn the switch. I think they're going to try and continue going at that stage. They've 1 day extra, and it makes a big difference at this level. It really does. And I thought the changes were very good. I thought Max Millions at 15, he made a couple of mistakes, but he is a threat and he's interesting and he's a first receiver. I thought Elliot Daly has been jogging for nearly 4 weeks now, and it didn't look particularly sharp at it. I thought changing up, putting Luke Cowan-Dickey on, I think he's a really fine player. I actually thought he should have been sin-binned in the first 10 minutes. I thought he made 3 tackles that were chop tackles at the ankles of French players that were not penalised. Interestingly enough, Sinclair got suspended because he criticised one such tackle from Cowan-Dickey when they played against them before the Six Nations started. So I thought that was a miss, and I think they played with a high level of aggression, but they looked to be on fire. But without a shadow of a doubt, Owen Farrell is not your 10, he's a 12, because the shape on the team changes drastically when George Ford goes in. The purity of his kicking for touch, of any of his kicks is just fantastic, and they play better as a team, and it's they were a joy to watch. I mean, I'm not afraid of what will happen at the weekend because we're playing at home, and this is our big game, and I think we leave it all on the field, and we have to, and we're going to have to, because if we don't, if we get it off, and if we're not fully clued into it, and if we try and play in the manner of just kicking the ball away all the time, I think England, if they have this attitude, could punish us very heavily. Yeah. And so even with Scotland had a huge amount of players that got injured. They ended up with a scrum half on the side of the scrum for 20 minutes. Yeah. Different guys in and around. They didn't look. Their passing in their backline, strangely for Scotland, was well off. So if England pass like they did on Saturday, we're going to be under pressure.
Yeah, you would think so. Very quickly and finally, and there's not much really to say here, but Italy were abject in the extreme. Again, Wales scored 7 tries. Probably their worst performance of the tournament. It's, Franco Smith said, well, we're getting better game on game on game. They're not. For the tournament, it's just a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought they were terrible defensively. They didn't look tuned in at all. And, playing defence, even playing against bigger teams, which Italy play week in, week out, if you can just hang in there with spirit, and I can get you far enough, it can get you kind of, to remain in the game somewhat. But they, this togetherness, this mental battle to be able to tackle, get up off the ground, they just didn't look like they didn't want to tackle at all. They didn't want to be in the defensive line. Yet when they had the ball, they did show moments. That score by Montione was another really, really good score. I think he must be livid, the fact that he's spending so much time on the sideline while all his pack are getting yellow carded throughout the tournament, and he's their most dangerous player. I don't understand it, but they look like they have loads of energy when they don't have the ball, so they're trying things. And Barney, Gabrici, that they are good players, and they'll grow the more they get to play. But defensively, it was shambolic almost, and I hate to say that word, but it really was.
Yeah, you'd be interested to see if they could break the bank and get Sean Edwards in for a year or two when he's done with France. Might he improve things? Triple header on Saturday. We'll talk to you, I'm sure, at some stage along the way. Keith Wood, Niamh Briggs, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks a million.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.